which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
You just said that you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices.
I don't know. There's going to be a transcript of this hearing. I didn't say that in that way.
Okay, why don't you explain what you believe?
What I
Very
said
briefly.
and what I believe is that the demographic composition of workplaces,
Which
our
is,
nation's military,
by
and
demographic
so on,
composition,
our Congress ought to reflect the diversity of the United States of America.
Racial demographic composition. Racial demographic, is that what you're saying?
Racial, gender.
Okay, so race should be a factor in employer hiring practices. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is it not?
Organizations ought to attempt to match the diversity of
you're
their...
hopping around the question.
No,
you don't want to
I am
answer
answering
it.
quite straightforwardly,
Who
as a
gets
matter of
to
fact.
determine which races are preferred?
I already told you I don't have a single racial group.
You just told me that you believe that the racial demographic makeup should be taken into account in hiring practices.
And it should be reflected in all levels of companies and other organizations.
So a DEI expert gets confronted on his, I guess, preference and approach about why DEI. Industries should reflect the composition of the racial groups in the country. Okay, and the easiest way to break this argument, because these people here, right, they claim that we just want the proportional racial society to match industries, right? So if there's 13% of black people in this country, that means 30% of companies should be black, right? This is their worldview, but they don't understand how impractical that is. They don't understand that to make up those numbers, they have to lower standards in certain fields. For instance, if it's basketball, it'll be easy to meet that 13% quota, because right now the NBA is 76% black. So where's the DEI advocates trying to make it fit racial demographics in the country? This is the disingenuousness of the DEI. This is why many, such as myself, believe that DEI is racism under new management, because they pick and choose when they want to apply DEI. For instance, Jason Whitlock, I think he was a former sports analyst for ESPN. He's criticizing ESPN because they're now having an all-female show. How is this diversity? How is this diverse? Let me ask you a question. How is that diverse?
Oh, Kenny, you have to understand, the industry is mostly male, so we are equalizing it by having an all-female show.
Right now in ESPN, I think there's not a single show that's just all males, unless it's just 2 or 3 people. That's the only way it's all males. For the most part, they always have one female in there. I've been watching sports all my life, and I don't think, the vibes are looking right with this show. I'm just saying. And this is the hypocrisy of these people, is that they do the same thing with racial groups as well. If it's all black panel, they call it diverse. Why? That's not diversity. It's racism, sexism under new management. That's what DEI is. This is why many people cannot stand DEI. People want a colorblind society, because at the end of the day, we want to guarantee everyone has a shot, but we're not going to guarantee outcomes for you. And this was an attempt to guarantee outcomes for people. It gets ridiculous by the day, right? And the reason why I think many of these leftists, I call them race hustlers, because DEI is actually just a hustle of what Al Sharpton and all these black Democrats are used to doing, because they swear up and down that racism is the biggest problem. Like, racism explains all their problems, right? And the only way you can solve racism is to use racism to counter it. Make it make sense. This is the kind of thinking of progressives. Let's take a look at Jamal Baldwin making a complete idiot out of himself. Let's take a look.
Catholic pro-life ministries bombed. We are not dealing with America's original sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people, and sexism towards women, and anti-LGBTQ sentiment. We are not dealing with that. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Congressman, I mean, where are you on?
You can't be calm about this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease...
I'm white, I can't comment.
Listen to what I'm saying. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word directly or indirectly every day. If your colleagues would listen and try to learn and engage and grow and stop being so hateful, we could have a better country.
Jamal,
but unfortunately, we're still here.
Jamal,
The hate's coming from one side.
Jamal, I feel your passion, and I understand where you're coming from, sincerely. I really, really do. It happens on both sides, Jamal. You might think it happens more on your side. Jamal, when I leave the show, Jamal, you should see my Twitter feed. I mean,
and they're acquitted. Rodney King, Abner Louima, Eric Gardner.
All right. We're done listening to that guy, right? Here are all the crap he's talking about. Oh, we face obesity because of the stress of dealing with racism. I think it's the stress of eating soul food, eating low quality food like Burger King, KFC. I have not eaten those stuff in a long time, right? Super fried, greased up Chinese food. I think is the stress of eating that every day. Lack of exercise, lack of dieting. I think that's what's causing obesity in the Black community, right? Behavior. That's what I focus on. Focus on things that the Black people can control, not people's perception of you, not people's belief of you. And you're doing it to yourself. Because secretly, in my view, this is my view, Black Democrats look for the validation of white people. That's the reality. That's the only way you can explain this DEI stuff. And they play into white progressives, white leftists' guilt about their race, because we all know here on this channel that white liberals have a negative perception of their own race. The only racial group, the only political group that has a negative bias against their own race are white liberals. And Black Democrats play into that guilt of white liberals. Therefore, this so-called Black power that Black Democrats love to brag about relies on white people feeling guilty about themselves. This is why they have such a hard time with their hustle now. Because a lot of white people that are not white liberals, they're not tolerating this stuff. They're not tolerating racist crap from Black people anymore. You can call me a C word, but if I call you an N word, it's the end of the world. What about the stress of white people hearing people call them the C word, the devil? What about that? We could equalize it all. And then he gets mad when people are just trying to say, "Hey, look, it happens on both sides." Like these same people admit to you that Black people can have prejudice, which is essentially racism. That's racism. Having a prejudice is racism. Having this belief that white people are somehow inherently racist is a prejudice. That's racist. Believing you can't be racist because you're Black is an assumption based on someone's race. Therefore, that's a racist statement. Saying Black people are incapable of doing things is racist, solely based on their race. Oh, we're supposed to perceive it differently because of the color of your skin. That's racism. Judge a man not by the color of his skin, but the content of his character. And if you look at Jamal Bowman's character, it's entitlement. This is the reality that Black Democrats have exposed to me every single day since the day I've been born in this community. Is the fact that they're so it's a dependency. Black Democrats don't know how to stand on their own. They always need someone else to do something for them. Always need to be passive in their life, and they wonder why they suffer such bad mental health compared to their conservative counterparts. Because they're playing a game that they can never win, looking for the validation of other people. I don't care about other people's validation. I say what I believe to be true. I defend my worldview as best as I can. And if you don't like it, hey, I gave you clarification. You call me coon in the comment section, right? Put raccoon emojis. Call me all kinds of derogatory things. I don't care. These are my beliefs, and you don't have an argument. That's why you're resorting to name calling. And this is the stuff that sours a lot of people on the Democratic Party.
Statistically speaking, Black Americans are the most Orthodox Christians in the country. They attend the church most frequently. They read the scriptures more than anyone else. And they're a solidly Democratic voting bloc. But the coalition of Democratic
I don't know how solidly Democratic voting bloc they are.
They have been historically. Yes, they've been losing ground.
They have been historically.
Yes,
absolutely.
but you have that coalition within the Democratic Party. But then you have a lot of white progressives, highly educated white progressives, who are the least religious Americans in the country.
And as long as they're driving our party, and as long as they're defining our message, we're going to lose more voters. If voters think we are more concerned about Latinx or, using terms like justice-involved adolescents or people experiencing homelessness, as long as they think the Democratic Party is an academic lounge fighting over linguistic policing, rather than fighting for opportunity for working class Americans who are struggling to get ahead, they're going to say, eh. And as long as we engage with people in a way that treats them as sort of two-dimensional cutouts, where like we're for you, but we're not with you, and we don't hear you, and we don't share your journey, we're going to keep losing.
Let's call it for what it is. It's word games. It's word games. Oh, we playing with this linguistic word games. They just want to define stuff. Oh, we don't like your language. We don't like Spanish. This is what white progressives will tell a Hispanic woman. We don't like the language. It's too gender. They have gender specific terms. They don't recognize transgenderism. So we're going to call you guys Latinx. I'm from South Florida. I'm from Miami specifically. Miami, Florida. I've never heard in my life living in Miami a Hispanic person introduce himself as a Latinx unless it was some college girl that went to, or some liberal Hispanic. And even then, liberal Hispanics know when they go to their family, they don't use those terms. They only use it amongst themselves. The woke liberal Hispanics, they only use that amongst themselves. But every time they try to campaign on that term, what happens? It turns off a majority of Hispanics. Because these white progressives, as Chris Coons said in the clip that you just watched, he highlighted how, hey, as long as white progressives are the one defining the messaging, it won't be appealing to all people, because the messaging is only appealing to white progressives, who are mostly women, in my view. Mostly white liberal women. They're the one who set the messaging for the Democratic Party. And you see it. How they carry themselves, how they decide to talk, this overly emotional, like unpragmatic, no outcomes driven, right? And it comes across to me like coddling adults. Coddling adults en masse is a civilization-ending error. And this is how I see progressivism, right? You have this black guy here. Sorry, I don't mean to point out his race and gender, but this DEI expert here is trying to say is trying to defend DEI. People are critical of his hustle, because that's what it is. DEI is hustle. It's a hustle. It's a fake job created by liberal ideology to justify giving people like him a position. I'm sorry. Oh, we must train people to think in a certain way. Oh, so you're a priest. You're a priest for an ideology. And this is what DEI actually is. The reason why these people are defending DEI is because essentially they're defending justification for their job. That's what it is. These people make six-figure salaries telling people about racism under new management called DEI, sexism under new management called DEI, and trying to get you to accept that.
And we're going to move on. Do you believe that America should be a colorblind society? For instance, should people be treated differently based on their race? It's just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
It is as I said in the beginning of my testimony, America
yes or
has
no
not done right by indigenous peoples, by black people, by Asian American and Pacific Islander people.
Should people be treated differently based on their race? Yes or no?
People should receive the services and the support and the remedies that are
your
owed
answer
to
is
them.
that they should be treated differently based on their race.
They should receive the remedies that are owed to them because of the systemic racism and injustice.
Do you believe that race should be considered an employer?
This is where people going to get a little angry, because the largest demographics of poor people in this country are white people. So why we should care about black people's poverty so much to the degree that we do, right? If we make DEI based on class, okay, we want to give people from poor backgrounds more opportunities to get into college, get into other. I think that'll be a more acceptable idea than to just focus on race, right? And this goes with this pathetic kind of ideology of DEI, is that it puts no responsibility on your upbringing, your parents. Like, there's no responsibility there. And this is why I think a lot of these people focus on racism so much, because if you can't blame racism for the circumstances that the black community finds itself in, or these minority communities find themselves in, then you have to blame the decision makings of the previous generation. Because at the end of the day, your parents essentially influence and puts you in certain environments based on what they did, based on the actions and decisions that they made in their lives, will set up the environment that you'll grow up in. So if you can't blame racism for, or systematic racism, if you can't blame a system for the certain situation of your black community, if I take that away, who's to blame? You have to blame the previous generation. You have to blame your parents. Hey, mom and dad, your decisions created this environment that now I have to deal with, essentially. And that's true for any generation, right? You want to blame an entire race of people for what only 1% of people in their race did. Only 1% of white Americans owned slavery at the peak in the 1800s. Peak slavery. Only 1.6% of white people owned slaves. Yet for some reason, you want to cascade that sin on all of them. Make it make sense.
Your hiring practices?
I do not believe that white people are the only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered an.
You see? Racism. Why you don't believe it? So you believe black people can't be qualified without you giving them a handout? DEI experts treat black people, actually, DEI experts treat women and minorities like retarded children. Oh, we need to help these people. They treat you guys like you handicapped. They don't believe you have the ability to actually compete. Look at the NBA. NBA, that is a simple example of how much DEI. If we had the thought, hey, white people can't compete with the black NBA players, we have to give them support. We have to rig the game in their favor to get into the NBA. You think Cooper Flag, the first pick of this year's draft, you think he need DEI to get his job in the NBA? No. We know he's good. We see the results. We see his impact. But when you put the same requirement on black people outside of sports and put it into academia, corporate America, DEI people call you racist for that. Oh, look, the black people, black representation is falling in corporate America ever since DEI got canceled. Exactly, because less qualified people or black people who happen to not make the mark are not going to get hired just to fit a quota. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. If you focus on people's race and your goal is, hey, demographics representation versus merit and ability, and I ask you, if you find yourself in a situation where these things conflict, who are you going to go to? DEI tells you representation matters more than the merit, more than the ability of an individual. If you already meet quota for Asian representation, but you got a really damn good engineer, you're like, damn, this guy, he's a high potential engineer. But you find out, but he's Asian. And you're like, oh, we got enough Asian people. Sorry, we can't hire him because of DEI quotas. This is racism under management. That's like me saying, oh, we can't draft the future LeBron James because we have enough black people in the NBA. Apply DEI in a situation where it goes against the group it's supposed to help, and you see how quickly these people will twist themselves in a pretzel to not acknowledge this discrepancy. But let's go back, because this man, he perceives everything as white is right for some reason. I don't have that purview. I don't have this belief that I am inferior or superior to anybody because of the color of my skin. And that's something I think a lot of black Democrats suffer from, especially the ones that race hustle on DEI. But I digress. Let's finish off this video.
Only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered in employer hiring practices. And you're not going to intimidate me by slandering me as a racist.
You're also, I did not call you a racist.
No,
you're not going to intimidate me by insisting that I called you a racist.
Straightforward question. It's a yes or no question. Should race be considered in employer hiring practices? Yes or no?
I believe that diversity ought to be considered as companies and other organizations attempt to reflect their customers, our country.
I'll take that as a yes. Which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
And you see how like the argument starts crumbling. If you believe a single race should not be preferred, okay, let's go with one of his statements. The industry should reflect the demographics of its customers. What is the percentage of people who go to NBA games, who buy NBA games, buy NBA subscriptions? It's not black people, not a high percentage. Not at the demographic representation that the NBA players do. Not that much. Now, you can say who watches it. Maybe that's a different thing, but who's in the stadiums? Bunch of white people. Is that represented in the NBA? No. So by his argument, the NBA should do everything they can to put more white players in there, more Asian players in their ranks, more Hispanic players in their ranks. But the NBA wouldn't do that because it will hurt the quality of the product. And we all know this. It's very simple. If I pick a player and I value his representation more than I value his skill, he's always going to be a subpar player because they're just the bench in the black community is just a lot deeper. That's why 76% of the league is black. There's a lot of good black players that don't make it in the NBA. But if I artificially, I'm going to add more Asian representation, I'm going to add more white representation, I'm going to dilute the quality of the game. And this is what DEI don't seem to understand. Because you ask him that question and say, okay, let's apply DEI to the NBA. He will find ways to say, no, the NBA is actually diverse. How is it diverse? It's 76% of one race. You said that there's no preference for one race. And this is where their argument starts crumbling. And you know it's about racial preference. So I guess, in a way, he proved my argument. DEI is racism under new management. But, I digress. I'm tired of the word games of the left. Word games of the progressive left, but hey, this is what they sign up for. This is the emotional messaging that they want you to use because they want to manipulate you into accepting prejudice. That's it. That's what. And the Democratic Party has always been this way from slavery till now. They've always been the party about discrimination. They just changed the target of it now. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts and perspectives in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.